GTA San Andreas features one of the most amazing lore-building stories in video game history, and gangs play a huge role in that, which is exactly why they're packed with far more interesting facts and easy-to-miss details than you might expect. In this video, we'll be taking a look at 100 facts about these gangs, starting with Grove Street. The Grove Street families are heavily inspired by real-life Los Angeles gangs, particularly the Crips, as both are predominantly African-American sets in South Los Angeles. The gang is believed to have formed around the 1970s, with some hints suggesting it may have started as early as the 1960s. Ganton is inspired by Compton, a neighborhood in Los Angeles long associated with gang activity and street culture. That influence is reflected in the area's layout and atmosphere in the game. Grove Street members comment on CJ's outfit. If you're not wearing green, they'll often throw dismissive or negative lines, but once you dress in green, their attitude noticeably shifts into respect. Completing the 100 graffitis across Los Santos will unlock new weaponry to all the families, going from Tech-9s and pistols to MP5s, Desert Eagles, and knives. Big Smoke and Ryder didn't switch sides overnight. The way the story frames it, they were already connected to the crack operation long before Grove hit rock bottom, with their betrayal feeling less like a sudden decision and more like something that had been building in the background, while Sweet was ignoring the whole situation. Sweet resists expanding Grove Street because in Los Santos, expansion usually means funding it with crack money, and he refuses to protect the hood by becoming part of the problem. That stance creates a strategic mismatch. Gangs willing to use drug money can grow faster, recruit harder, and buy better weapons, so Grove's decline starts long before CJ returns, even without a single big event causing it. After the betrayal of Big Smoke and Ryder, the Grove Street families completely disappear. Even Grove Street itself is taken over by the Ballas, and GSF presence drops to zero for a large part of the game. The families are not a single unified gang, but a loose alliance of sets, mainly Grove Street, Temple Drive, and Seville Boulevard, each with its own turf and priorities. Grove rejects drug dealing, and a common theory is that Seville/Temple may have been pressured into the drug economy after the split, but the story never confirms it. The vehicle you drive can affect how the families react. Rolling up in a green car can trigger noticeably friendlier comments. The main Grove Street characters clearly draw inspiration from 90s rap figures, with Ryder resembling Eazy-E, Big Smoke echoing the notorious B.I.G., also known as Biggie, and Sweet reflecting Ice Cube. After Sweet is arrested, Big Smoke creates a splinter faction within Grove Street, which now work for him and completely disbanded from the families, to the point where they even attack CJ at sight. The only time we get to see them is in the final mission of the game, and in the Yay Courier side missions Caesar gives us in San Fierro. Grove Street families are commonly seen driving cars like the Greenwood, Voodoo, and Savannah, and their preferred radio station is Radio Los Santos. Families can often be seen hanging around in groups, smoking, drinking malt liquor, and just talking on the street. In early beta builds of San Andreas, families' NPCs used alternate skins with different clothing details and visual styles, many of which were later reworked or removed before launch. Within the Grove Street families, respect actually means something. If CJ's standing in the set is unusually low, it can even change how main story missions play out. In Los Sepulcros, the mission can switch to a different setup because Grove members won't follow you or let you recruit them. To account for that rare scenario, Rockstar made it so you first have to prove yourself by taking out Ballas in another neighborhood before the mission continues. Grove's decline wasn't only about drugs. Losing key OGs like Tony, Big Devil, and Little Devil, plus Big Bear falling apart and B-Dup switching sides, left the families without real leadership long before CJ returned. LB is never identified in the story, but he seems to be a low-key families contact linked to the Seville Boulevard set. His Willowfield garage is used to stash stolen weapons, and he provides vans for CJ and Ryder's robberies. A popular theory is that his initials are a nod to Leslie Benzies, a producer at Rockstar North. In GTA 5, it's mentioned that a gang called the Families once included a set known as the Grove Street Families, with that version of the gang existing in the 1990s before disbanding sometime prior to 2013. However, Rockstar has confirmed multiple times that each GTA universe has its own separate timeline, meaning the Grove Street Families from San Andreas never actually existed in GTA 5's world. The GSF member, Fam1, is voiced by Sean Fontino, who later went on to play Franklin Clinton in GTA 5, and is also the cousin of Young Melee, the voice of CJ. During early development, the gang was originally called the Orange Grove Families, which can still be seen through leftover details like OGF graffiti around Los Santos, dialogue references, an early loading screen showing an orange gang vehicle, and even an unused tattoo reading Orange Grove Families. There's a male NPC in Los Santos wearing an orange and black jersey with the number 12, and if you attack or threaten him, he may say,
"Come on, man, ain't we the same set?"
hinting at the gang's earlier orange-themed concept. There are 2 GSF character models that we can only see in the mission's house party, Los Sepulcros, and the Green Saber. These models are named Fam4 and Fam5 in the game files, and we never see them outside the cutscenes. Even though the families are split into 3 separate sets, CJ can still recruit members from Seville Boulevard and Temple Drive before completing the mission reuniting the families. GSF members can't hurt each other with gunfire, but they can still damage one another using melee weapons or by running each other over with vehicles. Just like Crash, the Grove Street families have a distinct background music theme that plays during key story moments tied to their presence. During the Los Santos riots, even normally friendly GSF members can turn hostile and attack CJ. Emmett, the family's gun supplier, ends up aligned with the Seville Boulevard set after the split, but he never shows hostility toward the original Grove Street families. Speaking of this, after the mission, reuniting the families, the outcome of the reunion is left ambiguous as it's never stated whether the Seville Boulevard or Temple Drive families rejoined Grove Street or were wiped out in the ambush, and neither group is mentioned again in the story after that point. So even if the reunion leaves the fate of the Seville Boulevard and Temple Drive sets unclear in the moment, the game answers it a few missions later. Once CJ is exiled to the countryside, both families' sets lose all presence in Los Santos, their turf is taken over by the Ballas, and they're effectively wiped out forever after this point. Let's now talk about the Ballas, Grove Street's primary rivals in Los Santos. The Ballas are clearly inspired by the Bloods, with their conflict mirroring the real-world Bloods and Crips rivalry. Some pre-release images show Ballas NPCs with different outfits and a slightly different color balance, but for the final release, Rockstar completely changed their look and fully committed to the cleaner, purple-centered designs everyone recognizes. Ballas members have specific dialogue lines that trigger after killing CJ, often mocking Grove Street directly.
"CJ is dead."
I just blasted on Carl Johnson.
Hey, that's OG CJ on the ground.
They're only shown actively doing graffiti once in the entire game, and it happens during the mission drive-by. When aiming at one of the Ballas, they can sometimes mock CJ by referencing his mother's death with lines like,
"I ain't gonna beg you like your mama did you."
turning combat dialogue into something deliberately personal. During development, the Ballas were originally planned under the name The Flats, before Rockstar settled on the name used in the final game. The Ballas' signature purple is commonly associated with the real-life Grape Street gang, suggesting where Rockstar may have pulled visual inspiration from. The Ballas are split into several internal sets, including Kilo Tray, Rollin Heights, Front Yard, and Temple Drive, which helps explain why their presence feels spread out rather than centralized. Each one of them has their own unique graffiti. The Temple Drive Ballas are effectively inactive at the start of the game because their territory had already been taken by the Temple Drive families, but they resurface later once Grove Street weakens and the area shifts hands again. At one point, the Ballas are involved in an arms deal with Russian dealers, but Tenpenny deliberately sends CJ to sabotage it as a way to keep power balanced rather than letting one gang grow too strong. Glen Park functions as the Ballas' main stronghold, which is why so many early conflicts and drive-bys naturally funnel through that area. The manager we have to take down in the mission, Management Issues, describes himself as almost a brother to a Ballas leader, which has led to speculation that the rapper Mad Dog may also have indirect ties to the gang, even though the game never confirms it. The Ballas maintained a large influence over their Grove enemies by distributing crack cocaine into their territory to weaken them. However, upon the return of Carl Johnson, that influence steadily collapses as Grove starts pushing back during the early missions. Big Smoke becomes a key part of how the Ballas weaken Grove Street. With him helping funnel drugs into Grove-controlled areas like Ganton, he helps create the conditions for collapse, distractions, addiction, and a slow breakdown of the families from the inside. The Idlewood Crack House hit is one of the Ballas' earliest and most important setbacks, showing that their expansion can be slowed once their drug operations are directly targeted. That momentum shifts fully when CJ is ordered by Sweet to take over Glen Park, Kilo Tray Ballas stronghold for the Grove Street families. The Ballas eventually lose their dominant position and adopt a more equal position with Grove Street temporarily. With their influence slipping after these losses, the Ballas abandon indirect pressure and move straight against Grove Street, only to be stopped when CJ and Sweet manage to keep the neighborhood under their control. Later in the story, the Ballas serve as paid muscle for Big Smoke, protection in exchange for crack and money. That arrangement shows how money overrides rivalry. Ballas and Vagos can cooperate when the payoff is big enough, even if they remain enemies on the street level. They will also often flash gang signs while talking and hanging around in groups. Ballas NPCs often ask CJ where he's from, and openly claiming Grove Street is enough to trigger an immediate attack. All Ballas sets operate under the same banner, wear purple, share the drug trade, and remain unified throughout the story, unlike the fractured Grove sets early on. The drug dealers on the streets of Los Santos constantly warn CJ that it's only a matter of time before he loses control of the hood. This suggests their connection to the Ballas could be way bigger than just selling crack, implying they may be members of the gang themselves, actively sabotaging Grove Street rather than just chasing profit. Dope is a minor character and a former Grove Street member who only appears twice in the entire game. He ends up addicted to crack after being influenced by the Ballas and affiliating with them, possibly through B-Dub, though his exact role within Grove Street before that is never made clear. In the introduction, a group of Ballas discuss Grove Street's decline while openly showing crack and saying it affects even OGs, framing drugs as a deliberate weapon rather than background detail. This scene also features 3 extra Ballas skins that never appear later, each built from reused assets, including one using a Grove Street head, another borrowed from Bogman, and a third based on Dope's model recolored purple. To meet Japanese censorship standards, the game rewrites the Ballas as more than just street-level enemies, giving them business fronts and adjusting missions like deconstruction, labeling the construction workers as Ballas associates to justify the violence. The name Ballas is commonly seen as a play on the slang term Baller, meaning someone who's made it big or lives large, which fits how the gang presents itself. Kane is a high-ranking member of the Front Yard Ballas who shows up at Little Weasel's funeral and is taken out by CJ and Sweet in one of the earliest gang clashes in the game. The Ballas NPC with the heavier character model behaves far more calmly than most others, standing out against the gang's normally aggressive attitude. Beyond the Ballas, the other major gang shaping Los Santos' streets are the Vagos. Los Santos Vagos are most often linked to the real-life Latin kings, especially because of the yellow color, though some elements may also draw from California Norteño culture. Street-level dialogue makes it clear that Vagos don't see the Ballas as equals even when working together, showing open disrespect to them just like the other gangs. Their most bitter enemies are the Barrio Los Aztecas, with their conflict portrayed as far more personal and absolute than most gang rivalries in Los Santos. Drug trafficking is also their main revenue stream and the backbone of their influence in the city. During the events where CJ is sent to the countryside and Big Smoke's betrayal reshapes the city, the Vagos quietly take over Azteca territory, made easier by the fact that Caesar is also absent and no longer actively leading the gang. The Vagos share several visual and thematic similarities with the Los Cholos gang from Vice City stories, especially in style and role within the city. The gang tend to show up in large numbers during late-game missions like Los Desperados and Home in the Hills, making this their largest advantage in combat. East Los Santos is ruled by the Ballas by the time of the game, but it was once Vagos territory before falling under Ballas control by 1992, implying either a violent gang war or a quiet behind-the-scenes deal. They are affiliated with the Fierro Rifa, who were once enemies before aligning through shared interests in the drug trade. The Vagos are arguably the least heavily armed gang in Los Santos, usually carrying only pistols, but they compensate by attacking in large numbers. Vagos members are most often seen driving classic cars like the 2-door Hermes and Tornado, along with the 4-door Oceanic. The word Vago in Spanish can mean slacker or lazy, making the gang's name literally translate to something like Los Santos Slackers. One shirtless Vagos NPC has a Christ tattoo across his lower abdomen, and the irony shows up in his voice lines. Right after getting a kill, he can say,
"Bless me, Father, for I have sinned."
Despite being one of Grove Street's main enemies, and arguably the most dangerous gang overall, the Vagos tend to act less hostile towards CJ during casual street encounters. Before the last mission of the game, it's implied that a truce may have been called between the families and the Vagos. A line from Sweet hints that the Vagos gave up Big Smoke's coordinates, possibly in exchange for easing hostilities, suggesting a temporary deal that mirrors real-world gang ceasefires after the Los Angeles riots in 1992. They are the most aggressive faction in gang wars, skipping weak starter weapons and showing up immediately with guns like micro SMGs, Tech 9s, and even AKs. Moving on to the Aztecas, their look and turf vibe are based on real Los Angeles Chicano gangs, particularly Sureño sets, which shows in their colors, tagging style, and how they're positioned in South Los Santos. While never formally confirmed, Cesar Villalpando is presented in the game as the de facto leader of the Barrio Los Aztecas. Even after CJ helps the Aztecas reclaim their territory late in the story, they remain hostile toward him once that mission is over. The Aztecas were originally planned to have their own colored territory on the map, but this was cut in the final game, possibly because they were never meant to be a long-term power threat. Jose is introduced as an important figure of the gang the first time we meet Cesar, but then vanishes from the story, except for another appearance in the introduction footage. Early Azteca character models had alternate outfits and color tones, which were later improved for the final game. On the streets, Aztecas are usually unarmed or carry just a 9mm or micro SMG, easily the weakest loadout of any gang, yet in Los Desperados, they show up with RPGs, Tech 9s, and katanas, implying they're far better armed than they normally let on. In an early stage of development, Aztecas could be recruited and were scripted to be much friendlier with the families, something that still leaks through in rare dialogue where they compliment CJ. Just like the Grove Street families, the Aztecas seem to avoid the drug trafficking business, so it's implied that their main source of income is street racing and gun running. The game never shows how exactly did Kendall meet Cesar, but some Aztecas' dialogue suggests she's seen in their hood very often, as sometimes they might tell CJ his sister was around. Leaving Los Santos behind, the next Mexican gang we encounter is the San Fierro Rifa. The San Fierro Rifa is the third Mexican gang introduced in the game, and it operates under the leadership of T-Bone Mendez. The Rifa initially show hostility toward other Mexican gangs in Los Santos, but that rivalry fades once they join Big Smoke's drug operation and link up with the Vagos. In some promotional screenshots, we can see the San Fierro Rifa were once planned to have turf colors in the map in San Fierro, but this was cut possibly because San Fierro plays a smaller role in the main gang war. In Chicano slang, the word Rifa is associated with control and dominance, fitting the gang's name and attitude. They are also on unfriendly terms with the other San Fierro gangs, the Chinese San Fierro Triads and the Vietnamese Da Nang Boys, though confrontation between these gangs are rare since their territories are pretty far away from each other. They make their final appearance in the final mission End of the Line, where they're hired by Big Smoke to help defend his crack empire alongside the Ballas, Vagos, and the Russian Mafia, and are ultimately wiped out. In versions of the game before the release, the Rifa had their own gang tags placed around San Fierro, and the word Fierro was misspelled as Fierro. The tags were cut before release, but still exists in the game files. The Rifa with the blue shirt somehow knows CJ's name. He may shout lines like,
Hey, CJ, you're going down. This one's just for you, CJ.
During early development, the Rifa were meant to attack CJ on sight, but while audio files for trashing his car still exist, none remain for direct combat, implying the idea was cut very early. San Andreas has exactly 8 active gangs. The other 3 besides the ones we already mentioned are the Da Nang Boys, the Chinese Triads, and the Italian Mafia. Unused data also hints there was at least 2 more scrapped gangs, suggesting Rockstar originally planned a much larger gang ecosystem. But this is a topic for another video. So, that's the full breakdown. 100 facts covering every gang, every role, and every corner of San Andreas that actually matters to the story.